Okay, today's question. And this is one that pushes my buttons because I have a huge soapbox to step
Oh,
up on for this one.
hang on. Let me flip to the next page of my notebook because this ought to be interesting. All right. All right, shoot.
Okay, Zach's taking notes. We're getting serious here. This is serious business. So here's the question. Are ethical non-monogamy and
Hmm.
polyamory basically the same thing?
Hmm. So, because I love being difficult when answering questions, you know, how many times have you asked me a question? No, can I just never say yes or no? Um, I personally don't like the term ethical non-monogamy or E&M. I prefer consensual non-monogamy. Now,
Ooh,
you
let's
might
talk about that soon.
you might be like, "Hey, that's just him driving, traffic to his website," and it is. No, but the problem with ethics is a movable goalpost. Because your ethics and my ethics may be difficult or different, and nowhere near a line, and we're still being ethical. So I kind of like the idea of consensual non-monogamy.
Okay,
Um,
let's pause here. Let's pause here because I think that this is a perfect time because I disagree with you.
cool. Wow. Go. I'm listening.
So, and I don't disagree with you for you. I disagree with you for me.
Okay.
But okay, so tell me about consensual non-monogamy. Tell me what that means to you.
So for me, consensual non-monogamy is that the people who are being non-monogamous, everyone is aware. Everyone is informed and is consented to, and is on board with it. Um, because ethical non-monogamy can be I'm being non-monogamous but not telling my partner about it, but I'm not telling them because in my mind it is ethical to keep them from something that's going to make them unhappy. But if I'm interacting with somebody who's got that sort of relationship and whatnot, I may not feel good about that. That may be their ethics, but not my ethics. And so if our ethics don't line up, because ethics aren't universal, everybody's got a different set of ethics. For me, consent is universal. And if I'm consenting to my non-monogamy, my partners are consenting, and all their partners are consenting, and everyone who is affected by or involved in whatever the non-monogamous sort of polycule connections are, that is how it becomes consensual. I don't want to find out I got a meta who is in a non-monogamous relationship but doesn't want to be because they've been pressed into it, didn't agree to it, or something like that. That would be not only not consensual, which by definition is against my ethics, but it would be unethical for me as well. And I couldn't do that. So I tend to prefer the term consensual non monogamy, which, by the way, is the term that the APA Division 44 uses, is consensual non monogamy. So yeah, that's so, and as I am the consent educator, consent king, consentwarrior.com, whatever, that's why for me, consensual is more important than ethics. That being said, my definition of polyamory is that it is consensual. Because otherwise I don't call it polyamory. People are like, well, I have a poly relationship. I just don't tell my wife. No, that isn't poly. That's non monogamy, not poly. But that's my sort of interpretation definition. To me, polyamory is consensual and everyone is informed. And Nookie
Okay, so
disagrees with me. Uh oh. Hang on.
I
Let
disagree
me
with
get
you
my
on a couple of
notepad
things.
and an extra
So,
pen because this is going to be good. All
and
right.
to be clear for everyone who's listening, I think that these things I don't think that there's a right and a wrong in this. Of course, I'm always right, but
What?
I believe that it's important to have these discussions so that you can make these distinctions for yourself and then move
Wait
forward
a
with
minute.
whatever feels right for you.
You can't always be right and disagree with me at the same time. You have to pick one or the other.
Just watch. Just watch. Um, okay, so to me, consensual non-monogamy versus ethical non-monogamy. You mentioned that consensual non-monogamy to you means that the people within the relationship know that there's a non-monogamous relationship and that they're consenting to that.
Mhm.
Okay, so to me, if I'm in a relationship with somebody and they don't know that I am non-monogamous, regardless of their status, that is not ethical, right? To me, that's a pretty clear standard. However, if I'm in a relationship with somebody and I am non-monogamous and they are choosing to change their mind about my status, they're withdrawing their consent to my being non-monogamous. And I say, fuck you. You don't get to consent to my non-monogamy.
Mm-hmm.
That is my ethics. My ethics are that I treat each human being that I interact with ethically. I let them know exactly who I am. I communicate with them on how I run my relationships. I make agreements. And if I'm going to break an agreement for any reason, I tell them as quickly as possible, even if it's after the breaking of the agreement, because we all break agreements sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
mm-hmm.
owning up to them as immediately as possible. But they don't ever get to consent with my relationships. They get to consent to having a relationship with me or not.
Yeah.
But they do not get to consent to my having a relationship with another human being or not.
Oh yeah, well, it doesn't have anything to do with them. I mean, a relationship is made up of the two entities in that relationship. So yeah.
Exactly. So that's where, so like you said, my metas can, consent to this and that. I don't give a fuck if your metas consent to me, if you and I are good. That's none of their fucking business, right? So that's why I use ethical, because to me that focuses in on how do I, as a non-monogamous individual, treat each human I interact with. And the other thing is I use ethical specifically versus moral, because I don't think that there is code of what is inherently right or wrong. In ethics, there is what is right or wrong for these two people. And and one of my ethics is, if I don't tell somebody something because I know it's going to upset them, I am being unethical.
Yeah.
Right? So to me, one of the reasons I use ethical non-monogamy is because it encourages conversation about what is ethical, as opposed to, I feel like, and this is not aimed at you, but I feel like a lot of people use consensual non-monogamy as sort of like this warm, fuzzy blanket. You and I, we're both non-monogamous. This is fabulous. As long as we agree, everything is wonderful. And they don't dig down into, what are your ethics? How are you going to behave? I'm glad that wasn't
pointed at me, because I've never done anything with a warm, fuzzy blanket.
That's not what I've heard. But okay, so anyway.
Okay, they were lying. Anyway. No,
so that's, to me, that's the big thing. Like, so, and when I did last year, when I held the weekend event, it's not cheating. I said, it's not cheating, it's ethical and consensual non-monogamy. I put those in there because, for me, ethical is the key. For other people, consensual is the key. Again, it's not something I can say is right or wrong for other people, but for myself, somebody comes in and saying, well, I don't consent to that. That's not my problem. Step back, right? Like this, you don't get to consent to that, right? That's, in fact, it reminds me of a thing I posted today. Was it today or yesterday? Anyway, you might have seen it. It's a woman, and she's standing there. She's got this look on her face, and it's like, that feeling you get when you were open and honest about being polyamorous with somebody, but they thought you would change for the right person, and they thought they were the right person, right? Like, wow. That's their consent, right? Like, they're consenting to be in a relationship with you until you choose them. That's my ethics is, I told you exactly who I am. I told you exactly what I'll do, and I'll move forward with those ethics with you. If you choose. If you don't choose, that's just fine as well. I'm still being ethical, even if I'm not being consensual as far as you have determined based on my behaviors.
Yeah. I mean, I can kind of see it. It's whether or not somebody consents to me being non-monogamous. I don't give a shit. I'm non-monogamous. They're like, this is what I am. It's not going anywhere. But again, I lead with that, and I've met people. I had this wonderful experience where I met somebody on a horrible dating app, and we had this great conversation, and she's like, was there anything else that I know about you? I was like, well, you didn't mention it, but it's in my profile, because I leaded with it in my profiles that I'm not monogamous. She's like, wait, what does that mean? And I was like, okay, it means that I'm not monogamous. What part of that don't you understand? And she's like, So you mean you want to see other people? I'm like, no, I have other relationships right now. And her next question is, well, would you be willing to give that up? I'm like, no. And I was insulted by the question because I was like, listen, I literally have people in my life right now who love me and care about me and want me to be happy. And if I like you, they want me to spend time with you because, that would make me happy. So there are people you don't know pulling for this to work out, and you want me to dump them for you, and I've known you for 20 minutes. That, to me, first of all, that would be unethical, because it would literally be, because I personally think that being
that would be sociopathic.
Well, yeah, but
that's in my swim lane.
Right. Well, no, but even as sociopathic, that itself is unethical. And there are people who do it all the time. These people that
it's impractical.
Date and fuck around with poly people until they find the one. The gal I was talking to that, we were dating and flirting and whatnot. Then she started dating this guy, and she's like, no, I like him. I don't want to share him. So I've decided to be monogamous with him. And I'm like, no. Let's just be honest. You were always monogamous. You'll fuck around with the poly people because, I'm not going to have a relationship with somebody or multiple people, be in a poly relationship with someone, and then call them up and say, hey, by the way, I found somebody monogamous. I'm dumping you. That to me is unethical. Right. And the people that I'm in relationships with right now didn't sign up for that. So, and by the way, I don't consider that's not polyamory, by the way. Those mono people that are playing around with poly people until they find somebody to be monogamous with, that isn't polyamory. That's some bullshit. That is, like Nookie said, sociopathic, unethical. That is not a way to treat people, because you're literally stomping on people's feelings because it's all about you and you're getting your one. It's damn near narcissistic because it is extremely selfish. And I've seen people do that on a regular basis and act like it's not a big deal because, poly people don't have feelings, or whatever the hell. So, by the way, I just realized I got up on a soapbox, and I hope it's still reinforced because I'm a big guy. But yeah, so, I think you can be unethical and sociopathic and have none of that be remotely close to polyamory. It's non-monogamy. It's not polyamory. I think that's the key there, is knowing the difference between those.
So I'm going to touch on that here in just a second. I really want to bring up Unruly Nerd Girl.
Okay.
Unruly Nerd Girl said, I like the term consensual non-monogamy because it implies the consent of all parties involved, whether they are directly or indirectly involved. It also implies that engagement or consent may be revoked if the relationship crosses boundaries, which, I completely agree with that, to the extent that I don't give a flying fuck if you consent to my relationship patterns. You have to consent to the relationship I'm in with you. Right. But anything else, you don't get to choose my life.
Yeah.
Like, it's that simple.
Well, that's where it ends, though. Yeah. It's, I don't consent to you being in that relationship with some other person. Fuck you. It has nothing to do with you. But that's the opposite of that veto power thing, right?
Right. Well, but until
but I've had that happen where people will, and this is the conversations we get into all the time with non-monogamous people and with polyamory, is when people are trying to draw boundaries, but they draw a boundary line behind where somebody is standing and then get mad because they won't back up. And I've had that happen to me before. It's like, well, no, this is where I'm setting a boundary, but I'm setting a boundary behind something that you've already done. I want you to stop doing that because this is where I'm setting my boundaries. It's like, no, bitch, that's not a boundary. That's you trying to set a rule to control my behavior, which is the definition of abuse. And that isn't how that works. So
will you be monogamous with me, though?
If you're asking me to be monogamous, you got a problem.
Wait. Maybe if it's only me and the people you already have, nobody else. Right? Because I just wanted to keep, I just don't ever want it to change. Okay, not that. Okay. So can I be the only girl in North Carolina ever? Like, because they'll do this, right? Like, they'll put in these, I want to be special in these particular ways type of things. And you're like,
yeah. And I've facilitated groups full of people, polyamorous people talking, that'll hear people saying that, and they start shaking their head. The folks that have been there before, it's like, no, this is where you're trying to set up rules, you're trying to set up boundaries. This is where OPPs come in, those one penis / one pussy policies. This is where veto powers come in. Of course you do, because you're sociopathic. This is where veto power comes in, where it's like, no, I can do whatever I want, but I want to be able to control what you do so that it doesn't violate my insecurities. And my response to that is usually, fuck you and your insecurities. You need to get over that. You're the one with the insecurities, not me. So, I mean, sure, Nooks, we can talk about it, but here's the problem. I'm already talking to somebody in North Carolina, so that boundary isn't going to work for me. And if you want me to not talk to anybody new, have you met me? I wake up
But
slutty.
I thought you loved me.
Oh, I can love the hell out of you. I promise. You know.
Okay, so this takes us to polyamory, and this is the second bit. So you said you feel like polyamory has to be consensual in order for it to be polyamory. I mean, that's kind of what you were, and I understand that as a lifestyle, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
I don't feel like polyamory is a lifestyle. And I feel like the people who talk about it as if it were a lifestyle are doing it an injustice, doing everyone an injustice. To me, again, I like to talk, for what goes on in my head, not what other people have to, do or think or whatever. To me, polyamory is simply an attachment style. It's like saying I'm heteroflexible. I mostly get sexy times, like really hot with guys. Every once in a while, it's with other genders, right? Like I'm hetero flexible. Polyamory to me is simply that I can and do in my case, but I feel I am capable of loving more than one person in a partnership type of way. So once you say I'm polyamorous, then my next question would be, well, what are your relationship styles? How do you polyamory? Yeah. Right? Like, how do you live that? Because you might be a relationship anarchist. You might be, polyfidelity in a triad or in a quad. You might be a swinger who has found that over the years, there are certain people that you sort of create extended family with. You might be in an open relationship. So there's so many different ways to polyamory that I think when people say, oh, I'm poly, and they expect you to know something about it, they're they're not really saying anything at all.
Yeah, everyone does their poly differently. I tend to think that because, like you said, the title of your thing is it's not cheating, it's ethical or consensual non-monogamy, but there are people that cheat, and that's non-monogamy. I mean, it really is non-monogamy. Well,
it is, absolutely.
I can also be really, really geeky and go back to the original definition of non-monogamy that most people aren't. But, because it's monogamy.
One person from start to finish. Yeah. That's monogamy.
Yeah, one person for your entire monogamy. Life. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And serial monogamy isn't monogamy, though. I mean, they just like to call it serial monogamy because it's monogamy one after the other. It's like
that's more of a moral. I think that's more of a moral judgment than anything else.
Right.
But here's the thing: you can be non-monogamous without being polyamorous. You can be polyfuckerous, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. So no, they're not the same is the answer to the question.
Right. You can be a serial philanderer, which is not monogamy. I mean, where you're just randomly, you're married and you have, and there's this, of course, traditionally, I mean, I don't like to be gendered, but this has traditionally been a lot of, men, particularly powerful men who, my favorite example is always John F. Kennedy. Dude wasn't monogamous. The world knew he was not monogamous. He had a wife and they had Camelot and he had children, but he was not monogamous. People knew it. Dude was forever, with as bad as his back was, hopping from one bed to another. He was not monogamous. Now, is that ethical? He probably thinks it is because his ethics were you can be married and cheat on your wife and that's okay. Right. The
question is, though, I mean, at that point, was he cheating on his wife? Do we know for certain that she did not say, just keep them away from the family, right? Like have your light skirts, do your thing, keep them away from the family. We don't know, right? We can't make that call.
we can't decide what is or is not within or outside the bounds of the rules in that relationship, which is the key to that. Because every relationship is different. Look, you and I may have a relationship that to other people looks really, really fucked up, but we are keeping to the agreement that is between us, and that's fine. So like, it's like, listen, so if I would have to tell other people, like, look, I am free to do whatever I want, but just understand she don't give a shit if you consent to a relationship or not. She's gonna do what she wants to do. I can't control her. I don't want to try, but that's just the type of broad she is. But she's bonkers in the sack, so I can't let it go. I'm sorry. I'm not.
It's so true. It's so true. You know me so well.
You're going to have to deal with this, wild person as a meta. There is no controlling it. Sometimes you just have to kind of hold on to the rails. So yeah, I mean, but that's kind of that conversation. And it's one of the reasons why I'm always fond of saying that the only people who get to determine what the boundaries of a relationship are the ones in that relationship. And it literally can be different. That's where relationship anarchy comes from. Just because I have a certain agreement or set up in one relationship doesn't mean I have the exact same thing in every relationship I'm in, It is up to me and the people I'm in relationships with to decide what those boundaries are, where those lines are, what is or is not crossing the boundary line. I think the problem is for most of us who grew up in a society that is very, very mononormative, the inherent assumption, if the assumption is that the world is mono, then the assumption is that people from outside of a relationship dynamic have the right to judge and cast aspersions on what is going on in another relationship. Mm-hmm. And it's like, look, if Nookie and I are in a relationship and Nookie is running her own gangbangs and not telling me about that, it's not fair to assume that she's by definition violating an agreement that she and I have made. For all you know, she might be doing it for me. There's no telling. You don't know what's going on in a connection between other people.
I would totally set up a gangbang for you, Zach.
Oh, you say the sweetest things. You really do. My birthday
so
is December 9th.
In the chat asked about how about the term ethical non-monogamy. So you must have missed the beginning of this particular question because we just battled it out between consensual non-monogamy and ethical non-monogamy, and we're both sticking to our guns on that. You did not win. You're wrong. Wrong.
Unruly Nerd Girl agrees with me, but I won. So
yeah, but she's just adorable. That doesn't mean anything. Sample size of 1 doesn't matter. Anyway.
Oh, man.
So the answer to the question is ethical non-monogamy and polyamory are not the same thing by miles and miles and miles. And trying to use the word polyamory as an umbrella for everything non-monogamous except swinging is not cool.
Yeah. And it's, oh gosh, Nookie, have you ever seen poly people arguing about how gross swinging is and swinging people arguing about how gross polyamory is? It is the funniest thing in the world because they always have more in common than they think. And not realizing that basically their differences are arbitrarily set up in their own minds. I've seen people say, me and my husband have been together for 16 years and we've been swingers for 10 years, but I don't think we could do polyamory. That just seems kind of messy and gross. And I've seen the same thing with polyamory people who are slutty as hell, but think swinging is just a bit too much because those swinging people are just nasty. And I'm like, oh my God, you people really don't get
Here's what I say to the swingers. I'm like, you have been hanging out with those 3 couples, going on family vacations together, having barbecues together, raising your freaking kids together. And you're telling me you're not polyamorous.
Yeah,
you don't love them, right? Oh, I love them like a brother.
Together. Yeah, you go on vacation together and whatnot, and you're doing all these things. You're having family barbecues. You're going to each other's kids' graduations and stuff. But no. We just only, fuck, every other Saturday.
Swingers get a bad rap, in my opinion, and
although in some cases it's well earned.
Yeah, well, I mean, but it's true of kinksters too. There are a lot of shitty kinksters out there.
Oh yeah, and like the really nerd girl just mentioned, swingers are afraid of kinksters because kinksters are freaky.
yeah. Which brings an excellent topic up. We're working with Crimson Phoenix, Marina, Tristan, and now I can't remember. Oh no, Crimson Dragonfly, Phoenix, Marina, and Tristan. I was getting the names of Swinky Life to help bring better understanding and communication between the communities of kink and swing. So over the next year, we're going to be doing some things with those communities, because I think it's silly that we give each other the side eye so much. Like, if you're not into it, cool, right? But don't be not into it based on like assumptions and stereotypes and whatever.
And it's fun to sit back and watch everyone say, you know, yeah, we do this thing, but those people are weird. And they literally all have said that. It's like, listen, we may be kinky, and that means, you know, that every other weekend or something like that, we go to parties, tie each other to crosses, and beat one another until we're like black and blue, and, you know, need like special aftercare and stuff. But those swingers are just weird. Like, they're just gross. Like, they'll just fuck anyone. You know, like, so we do the kink stuff, which is really over the top, and, you know, we're setting people on fire, and we're doing.
But at least it's not sex.
And stuff like that. Yeah, but at least it's not sex. And the polyamories people are like, well, it's not all about the sex, but we love the sex. Or the swinging people is like, no, it's just sex. That's it. It's just sex. But, you know, we're not going to like hug and kiss, because kissing is a boundary, because that's just gross. And it's like, oh my God, you people, you know, we all have, in many cases, all have something in common. And I actually heard the argument that where the LGBT movement really started to make actual waves politically is when they unified and stopped, you know, walking around with these recalcitrant militant gay men who hate all women, including lesbians, and whatnot. When they kind of banded together is when they really started to make political movements. And I kind of think that under the umbrella of non-monogamy, there can be polyamory, swinging, kink, ethical non-monogamy, consensual non-monogamy, and whatever the hell it is that Nookie practices, can all be under the same umbrella. And
I'm a Dominic Cookholdress Pimptress who is polyamorous and monoromantic.
Yeah, say that 5 times fast. Anyway.
I love to make pets say stuff like that when I'm like holding his. Anyway.
Oh, wow.
Say it. Say it.
See, all I want is the occasional dinner. You know, so.
Unruly Nerd Girl says, I think it's a miscommunication and misunderstanding of style and etiquette. One group employs the opt-out approach, the swingers, while the other employs the opt-in approach, the kinksters. So this can create a conflict if you have someone approaching the other community with a certain frame of mind. Like if you believe everything is on the table, but the other side isn't into that, which is so true. I mean, that's really what it is. It's opt-out versus opt-in. And I don't believe that either of those things are wrong. It's just different. And you have to have a different set of awareness and education for each of those to work for you.
Right.
So
yeah.
I think we did good on this one.
Cool. Works for me.